Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us for another Westwood Trust Creative Chat. My name is Claire Williamson, and I am the Director of Education and Community Engagement at Society for the Performing Arts. To describe myself and my surroundings, I am a white woman with brown hair pulled back into a bun and dark rimmed glasses. I'm wearing a blue and white striped shirt, and there are several framed pictures on the white wall behind me. I am thrilled to be chatting this evening with another awardee of the Houston Artist Commissioning Project, Erin Rodgers. The mission of SPA's Houston Artist Commissioning Project is to provide economic and creative support to Houston's artist community, with virtual premieres rolling out this summer and a live cohort announced earlier this year. We'll be celebrating 3 virtual premieres this year, and we're looking forward to the live in-person premieres in October and November at Jones Hall. To learn more about the Houston Artist Commissioning Project, please visit our website. The link is shown here on screen. Now, before we delve into the conversation, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge humbly the Indigenous communities that have long used and continue to use this land as a living and gathering space. SPA's offices in Jones Hall are located on ancestral land traversed by the Karankawa, Atakapa Ishak, Sana, and Colwitakan people. The Alabama Coushatta migrated to the Houston area over 3 centuries ago and have also played a large role in shaping the culture and economy of our region. We know that a land acknowledgement is not enough, but we look to this as a starting place of recognition and respect for the lived experience of the people of this land and to broaden awareness of the forces that have led to this moment. It is now my pleasure to introduce Erin Rodgers, SPA's Houston Artist Commissioning Project virtual grantee. Erin Elizabeth Rodgers is a multidisciplinary artist from Houston, Texas. Erin's hallmark is her ability to distill complex emotions and concepts into elegant and effective storytelling. She brings this lyricism to all of her work, which includes writing, composition, multimedia, and textile work. She's a classically trained clarinetist, but she also has her own voice and likes to use it outside of that context. She plays the clarinet in most of her compositions, including her indie stuff. And as a performer, Erin currently contributes some combination of clarinet, piano, guitar, accordion, and vocals to several groups, including Houston indie rock band The Wheelworkers, Houston's premier accordion cover band, Houston's ASS, and National Pleasure, her own project. She also frequently works with the Catastrophic Theater and as part of the Drama Squad. She loves collaborations of all kinds, and sometimes her best works come from the ones that don't make sense to her immediately, because she's not limited by where it's expected to go. Since discovering a penchant for video and multimedia work, Erin has created videos for the Catastrophic Theater and National Pleasure, among other projects. Her most widely known video work to date is the first installment of Traffic Jams, which also features original music composition. Welcome, Erin.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Happy to. It's thundering outside, so it's nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to be here, right? Yeah, let's get this conversation started. So I have a couple of questions prepared, and if our virtual audience wants to chime in, please feel free to post a question in the live chat on either Facebook or YouTube, and we'll do our best to cover it. So to start off, a huge congratulations to you on the release of your latest album, Braviary. So how did you first develop a passion for creating and performing in the arts?
Oh, that's a hard question. I don't ever remember a time when I wasn't creating. My dad had a Casio keyboard that he'd bought to learn on, like a good old 70s, 80s Casio, and I used to play with that in my room and pick out melodies and write songs and things like that. It took me a little longer to get into performing. I actually just recently this weekend, I spent a bunch of time transferring VHS tapes and found my first ever performance, which was in the third grade choir. I played the marimba.
That's awesome.
In a musical. And that was my first time on stage. And it was funny because I don't know who's filming it and it's a bad 90s or 80s camera. But when they zoom in on my face at the end, I just look so happy to be on stage. And I think that makes sense to me still.
Yeah. That love of performing and music was already deeply instilled in you. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're a classically trained clarinetist. Are you also trained on the other instruments that you play, or was it more of like a self-taught situation?
I grew up playing piano. That was the first thing I learned. I started that when I was about 8. But I wasn't super serious about it. I mean, I went to lessons forever, but I was never like super competitive or anything.
Yeah.
And then in high school, junior high and high school, I played the clarinet. And I was okay at it. I didn't really love it. And then at one point I thought, maybe I'll go to college for music though. And I told my band director that that's what I wanted to do. And he sort of laughed at me, and I knew why. And it was because I didn't practice or try very hard. So I was like, no, watch this. So I went and got a teacher and I got first chair and I made all state, and then I went to college for the clarinet. So here we are.
Wow, it was a little bit of like, just let me show you what I can do.
Yeah. But I mean, I like it too. It wasn't purely spite.
Of course, yeah. I feel like it would be a lot to like build a whole career out of just showing someone.
No, but that was part of it. I didn't take myself seriously enough until I realized other people didn't, and I wanted to be taken seriously. So
yeah, sometimes it's that little push that we need to just, take whatever we're working on to the next level. Mm-hmm. That little bit of skepticism in others can be helpful.
And I had to learn guitar in college, and then I learned accordion much later. But yeah, piano and clarinet. Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible. That's such a really cool diversity of instruments too. I feel like, a lot of people like stick to wind or stick to strings, and you have a really nice breadth of instruments to work with.
I agree. It's more fun that way. I can do it all myself.
Yeah, that ties really well into your new album, Braviary. So how would you characterize this album, and what's the process of creating this work been like for you?
So this was a little different than anything I've ever done, and really wonderful, and maybe my favorite thing I've done yet musically. Wow. I've been in bands forever, and I've collaborated with people in songwriting, etc. But it didn't always go perfectly for me. So at some point I decided I was just going to do everything myself, and, started my own project. But then I realized that's not really what I want to do either. I want to collaborate. I just want to be more thoughtful about collaborating. I want to be more in charge of some of the collaborations, or at least understand the role. Either I'm in charge and you're working with me, or it's your project and I'm showing up, but to understand what everyone's job is and how we're participating in that. But really, that's my favorite. I don't really like doing everything myself. I know I said that earlier, but I don't really love it. I'd rather have other people's input. I think the sum of the parts is always better than whatever I'm doing alone. So anyway, this project was, my friend Tony Barilla had posted in the beginning of the pandemic these little keyboard melodies on Facebook where he's playing piano or synth or accordion, and they were all nice, but the very last one he did was just really lovely, and I just sort of instantly heard vocals over it. So I recorded it off of Facebook onto my phone and put it into my software, and then recorded some clarinet parts and some vocals and sent it back to him. And I was like, I hope you don't mind that I did this. I didn't ask. And he was like, I could send you the actual files. You don't have to just steal it off of Facebook like you clearly did, So he sent me the real file, and then I remixed it with the better sounding version. And then I was like, why don't you just go ahead and send me all of these melodies? There was one for each day of the week, so there were 7.
Oh, that's so
And
cool.
and I gave myself limits, which I find the best works come from, the most freedom comes from having some limitations. It's much easier. So I had his keyboard pieces and I told myself all I could do was add clarinet, vocals, and a beat, which was another thing I had to learn how to do. So I'd always wanted to learn a little bit more of the production side and the beat making side. So I did that. But all of the background, the keyboard work is all his. I just remixed it and made them into songs. But it was really enjoyable because a few of them were already really beautiful and I just instantly knew what I wanted to do with them. And some of them made no sense to me. I mean, Tony and I have a Venn diagram of writing styles, but it's not a total overlap. There are things that he does that my brain would never come up with. And I don't instantly know what to do with them. So there were a couple I was just like, what is this? You know, what am I going to do with this? But I made myself, I was like, no, you have to do all 7. So some of those turned out to be some of my favorite ones, the ones where I really had to stretch myself and try something different.
That's a really cool challenge to set for yourself. So all of the work for the album took place during the pandemic.
Yep. Yeah, I started it, and I guess it would have been May of last year, and finished the last song, St. Valentine, on Valentine's Day weekend. So that's the title.
Wow, that's incredible. But I just pulling out one of the things you said, I completely agree with you that setting limitations can be so freeing to sort of open up avenues for you to really focus on different areas to be creative. That makes a lot of sense.
It's so much easier than somebody just being like, write a song now. And you're like, no, okay.
Right. You're like, it could be anything. Great.
Yeah.
this is like an impossible task. But once you start sort of creating parameters, it can allow for really, really exciting creative expression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I don't know if you saw, but along with the album, instead of creating physical product, because when I was working on it, I didn't know when we were ever going to play shows again, or how I might even play these songs. So instead of making a record, I collaborated with Tracy Tebow to make artwork for it. So Breviary is a book of saints. So each song is named after a saint, and I'm not Catholic, but it was a concept to go with. Yeah. So Tracy made artwork, and we made a book with all of the artwork and the lyrics, and we also made candles. I wish I had one sitting here. I don't. With the artwork and the lyrics on them too, and that's been fun.
Oh wow.
More of a whole project instead of just an album.
Right. Yeah, like a real multimedia piece outside of just the music, which in and of itself is a huge project, and really beautiful. That's wonderful. That's lovely. So do you think you will perform any of them live, or is this really kind of a digital? Okay, so you're gonna adapt them for a live audience?
Started putting together the band now. So some of them I don't think are really conducive to a live show, but there are a few that I definitely think. And I have another complete EP that I'm just waiting to get mastered. So I have enough stuff to do a live show with this material. So
yeah, that's so exciting. That's going to be really, really cool. Yeah, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
And you have this other amazing project. This is a great segue with SPA, which is what we're really here to talk about. Road Noise is your upcoming premiere this Thursday. So what do you want to share about this work with our audience?
So this one is also an example of setting parameters and how that can work out for you. So the first one that I made, the traffic jams video, was an idea I had for a really long time, which was I took a camera and shot the lanes of 59 from the bridge over Dunleavy, which the only reason I didn't do it previously is I didn't have a good enough camera when I first had this idea. I didn't know how to do it. So now it just sort of organically happened finally. But anyway, and there's 5 lanes that you can see, or 5 or 6. And I assigned a note to each lane, and then also used the noise from the cars in the background and played it like a music box, essentially. But I really so the parameters of that were obviously set by the visuals. So I wasn't just composing a piece, I was using the action in the piece to create the song. And it turned out really nice. So yeah. It's amazing. For the new project, it's the similar thing, but the difference is I wanted someone else to create the video for me to work from, so that it would be a little bit different, not just my perspective or whatever I would film.
Right.
And I ended up making 2 short films using 2 different videos. So one of them, I'll just tell you,
Yeah.
one of them is it's driving through the tunnel in Baytown, and I edited that one by slowing it down a lot, and I'm still using some of the noise. So the people in the car that are driving were listening to jazz on the radio or on an album.
Oh.
So going into and out of the tunnel, I used that sound. And then inside the tunnel, I created different sounds for different things that are passing on the right side, because I was thinking, that's the side the person is driving on. So I was only paying attention to the things that are next to them.
Right.
And also the cars passing by. But if you watch it, you'll see that all of the notes, every piece of music in that is corresponding with something that's happening in the video. Probably have to look a couple of times to get them all, but everything is something that you can see. And the other video ended up being a little different than I anticipated, because the very first video submission that I got after we set the call out was from Chris, who is in the circus arts, and there's a train in the background and he's performing, and it was really wonderful. But then a lot of other people sent me videos also of trains. Some of them too short to use on their own. Some of them were only like 10 seconds long, but they were really good. So I decided to cut together a separate video using all of the train videos. So instead of just having one person, it's made up, I believe, of 5 different videos of trains.
Wow.
And again, each sound is something that's happening. And I made the beat and the background out of the train warning dinging sound, which if you ever needed to know, beats at 172 beats per minute. So
all right. Good to know.
So yeah, that made a nice background sound.
Yeah, that is so interesting. Having seen the piece, it's really interesting to me that the train short video is actually a compilation, because they all fit together so well. That's so interesting that, with sort of this open call, that multiple people thought of trains as a component that they would want to share.
I love trains, so I was already partial to that idea. But yeah, lots of beautiful train videos. There's one, it's very short, but it's Rebecca Lowe shot it. That's the contributor. It's there's trees reflecting onto or shadows of trees on the train as it's going by. It was really beautiful. And it was only a few seconds long, but I had to make sure there was a way to use that. So it's really pretty.
Yeah, well, and it's wonderful that you had multiple submissions so that you could kind of clip them together and make it feel like a larger narrative. Yeah.
Yeah, that was not in the plan at all, but it just turned out that way, and it worked better. So
yeah, that's wonderful. I think it's just such an interesting concept, that idea of creating a sound for each motion, each object, whatever we're talking about, whether it's passing objects or movements or motions. I know you talked about traffic jam as as being kind of the starting point for this idea. Where did that come from in your mind? You said that you'd had this idea for a while, and is that sort of part of your compositional process, that you're kind of thinking in that way when you're watching traffic or watching things move by? Or
I think that video is just sort of what it's like to live in my brain, which might be why it worked out. I don't know, I've always loved being in the car or being on a train. I can sit in a car for 12 hours and just stare out the window and never get bored. And I guess something in my brain is sort of doing that with things that I see, like feeling rhythms or especially when you're on a train and there's another track next to you. I remember a video that really stuck with me because it was something that I always thought is the Michel Gondry video for the Chemical Brothers song. I think it's Star Guitar, where he's filming trains going by. And it's cut together so that it's sort of a similar thing, but cut together so that the visuals repeat with the sounds. But anyway, like I said, that stuck with me when I first saw it, because that was already sort of how I felt whenever I was in a car on a train. So I can't tell you exactly where that idea came from, but it was just something that walking over that bridge, I always thought about, like, this is like a music box.
There's definitely something hypnotic about the visual, like just sort of, like you said, being being in a car and watching things fly by, or, you know, watching the patterns. It's very meditative as well. Yeah.
That's a word several people have used, and I am really happy that they have. So
Yeah, it is. It's watching traffic jams specifically. I remember you get sort of just in this space where you just sit with it and you're enjoying kind of the dripping. Essentially, it's kind of what I thought of it as, like the sound sort of dripping down.
well, thank you.
Yeah. You mentioned the jazz music in that original, in the not original, but in the tunnel video.
Yeah.
Is there other inspiration from sort of the natural sounds, the that or diegetic sound that was built into those video submissions?
So in that one, yes, I used it when they're driving into the tunnel and out of the tunnel, but I wanted to make the tunnel itself more of a surreal experience.
Mm-hmm.
So the video slows down as they go into the tunnel, and then I cut out all of the diegetic noise. But before and after they're in the tunnel, you can hear the outside world.
Yeah.
In the train one, again, the beat itself is actually just the train horn. I just cut up a piece. I cut out a piece where there wasn't too much really loud train noise going on in the background too, which was hard.
Yeah.
But one of the videos was actually quite long, so there was enough time to go through and find a good chunk of that. And also I did cut some of the traffic noise back into that as well, especially at the end, to sort of, the train's gone and now we're ready, you know, back to the traffic sounds.
Yeah. Kind of like that resuming normal life, or like moving out of that space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, that's really interesting. I was curious about that when I was watching, because I felt like the composition you created really fit so well into sort of like what I would imagine. Like, you know, having been in that situation of sitting and waiting for a train, it just felt very atmospheric. And so I was curious about whether or not there was inspiration, but I think probably that beat, the underlying beat, really plays a huge role in that level of inspiration, what I was sort of thinking about when I was watching it.
It's just the train bell with a lot of reverb on it. So.
Yeah.
And then just like the other one, all of the sounds other than those are based on what's happening. So there's a different sound when the train comes from one direction or when it goes to the other direction.
So. Yeah. There's a lot of detail in it. It's definitely the kind of video that you can watch over and over again and identify new elements and different aspects of the composition, because and visually as well, because you have really imbued a lot of detail into the work, which is really
well. Thank you. I hope so.
So at the end, you know, we're kind of wrapping up our conversation. This has been wonderful. I've loved hearing about your work, but I do want to give you an opportunity to make space to share anything else that's on your mind, or anything else you're working on that you want to share with our audience.
I have some things that I'm working on, but first, things I'm looking forward to that aren't mine.
Yeah.
Candace Dim has a video series coming, or film, I should say film, coming out through Catastrophic Theater that opens July 2nd that I'm really excited about. I read one of the scripts and it's really good. So, but I love all of her work, so I'm excited about that. Awesome. And I'm also working right now with Tamari Cooper on the next Tamari show. I just arranged a song for that. So this will be the last virtual one, I believe. So I guess it's sort of my project too, but not really. So those are the things I'm looking forward to coming up. That, and there's just going back to live shows again, which I haven't done yet. So
yeah, same here. It's very exciting to be moving back to that.
Yeah, really glad about that. Other stuff I'm working on, like I said, I have another EP that's totally done. I have a book of haikus coming out.
Wow.
A few years ago, we were on tour with the Wheelworkers and the air conditioning went out in the van. And so we had to drive with the windows down. So there was no radio or anything, and driving like to Milwaukee was just hours. So I made a post on Facebook that was like, send me a word and I'll write a haiku. and I got like 80 words. So
Wow.
I finally finished that project. It was like 90% done, but when the power was out in the freeze, I finally finished it because I couldn't get out of bed. So I just had to do something.
That's a good, that project seems to be centered around sort of like not having outside.
Not having temperature control, it's either too hot or too cold. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's so cool. That's really, you just have so many different projects of all sorts of genres and media. It's really, really cool.
For better or worse, yeah.
I think it's probably for better for all of us. We get to enjoy all that.
Well, thank you for having me and for awarding this grant. It was really exciting, and
absolutely.
I'm looking forward to seeing the third project as well that's coming up later. So
yes, yeah, exactly. That's our last big virtual thing for this year will be that that final piece after yours. So we're very excited for that as well. Yeah, well, I think that's about all we have time for this evening, but thank you to everyone for joining us virtually and for engaging with us during this conversation. And a huge thank you to our program sponsor, Westwood Trust. Before we sign off, I would like to encourage everyone to learn more about and support the amazing work that Erin has going on. I'm going to put her website up on the screen. And that's outside of her work with SPA as well. Check out her Facebook page and YouTube, which I'm sure you can get to from her website, and will also be linked on our page. And thank you so much, Erin, for sharing your time with me this evening and for allowing our audience to get to know you better.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Society for the Performing Arts is a nonprofit organization. If you enjoyed this conversation and would like to learn more about what we do at SPA and supporting our work, please visit our website. And also make sure to save the date for Erin's amazing Houston Artist Commissioning Project premiere, which will be available on Facebook, on YouTube Live, and on the SPA website, taking place this Thursday, June 24th at 7 p.m. We'll see you then.